According to the Black Book of Communism, an estimated 65 million Chinese people died as a result of Mao's repeated, merciless attempts to create a new socialist utopia. The Chinese were dying by the millions from famine and execution brought on by their own government. Mao Zedong, the instigator of this unimaginable killing spree, ruled China from 1949 to 1976, building a communist empire in the style of Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union and killing more people than Stalin did, and vastly more people than Hitler did. My guest today was born into this Chinese utopia. She remembers the Cultural Revolution that targeted the educated, the wealthy, everything old, everything traditional. And she is here to warn Americans about how it's happening all around us here in America. I want to talk about a very important topic all this month, and that is the topic of communism and also Marxism and how to recognize it in America today. I'm thoroughly convinced, and my guest says this often too, that too few Americans know very much about communism or about Chinese dictators, Mao in particular, the Chinese communist dictator. And they don't recognize how some of the same practices that happened throughout the 20th century around the world are happening here in the USA right now. So while American students learn a little bit about Karl Marx's written theories, and they learn about Hitler and the Holocaust, many Americans have no real knowledge of communism and the communist dictators that put Karl Marx's words into action, killing over 100 million people in the 20th century. According to the Black Book of Communism, an estimated 65 million Chinese people died as a result of Mao's repeated, merciless attempts to create a new socialist utopia. This was happening during the 1950s and 60s while Americans were enjoying the height of the American dream. The Chinese were dying by the millions from famine and execution brought on by their own government. Mao Zedong, the instigator of this unimaginable killing spree, ruled China from 1949 to 1976, building a communist empire in the style of Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union and killing more people than Stalin did, and vastly more people than Hitler did. My guest today was born into this Chinese utopia. She remembers the Cultural Revolution that targeted the educated, the wealthy, everything old, everything traditional. And she is here to warn Americans about how it's happening all around us here in America. Welcome to my podcast, Xi. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Well, thank you for finding me, first of all, on X, and inviting me to talk to the homeschoolers. And that was wonderful, really good, an opportunity. And so thank you for inviting me to your podcast. So, well, as you said a little bit already, I was born into the slavery of communism. And I was born in 1959 when the Great Famine just started. And of course, I did not have much memory, but I heard stories from my mother. And we are the lucky ones because we live in the city and we had ration. Even though it's not, everyone was hungry, but a few died in the city. And then up to 50 million peasants who perished because there's nothing from the government. The government took all their grain away, and lasted 2 years. So
State those numbers again. 2 years, over 50 million people died.
It's a 59 to 62. 3
Okay,
years,
so
3 years,
yeah.
3 years. And they have a good name for it, the party. They explain this. This is a 3-year natural disaster. Yeah, sure. Yeah, natural disaster to a vast country. And all of a sudden, it's a disaster, natural. The weather was responsible for all this death. But going forward, okay, so I want to explain a little bit, even though I'm talking about myself, but I want to lay the background so that the context, so people understand why there was such a thing as Cultural Revolution. So up to 50 million peasants starved to death. Even in a dictatorship, like China, like a communist China, that was a big deal, still big deal. So Mao was forced to admit that his policies were disastrous, and he was forced to give up some of his power, and so he was sidelined. That was 1962, and no, he still had power, and this all happened within the party, and people outside the party still thought he was our savior, the greatest leader we ever had. But as a dictator, he wanted real power, and so he planned a comeback in the next 4 years. And so in 1966, he launched his Cultural Revolution for one purpose, to get his power back. And so he called it the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution. Of course, and then he said, and he lied. Of course, they all lied. And he lied that, China, we're in the crossroad. There are people within the party, they want to take us back to the dark capitalist road.
Oh no.
Capitalist meaning, those people that were trying to recover from the famine and trying to recover economically. Now that was called capitalist road, and so we have to get rid of them. And so he did not have to use his army. He had an army, and that army up to 10 million. Who were they? They were young people from the government schools and who have been indoctrinated. And they did not know anything better. And so Mao was their great leader. And so if Mao asked them to do something, they would. So Mao used his private army of tens of millions of young people to launch the Great Cultural Revolution, to destroy everything that is old, everything that's traditional, everything that is that we take hold dear as Chinese, as our heritage. Everything has to be destroyed, and the people in power has to be taken down, because those are the people that are called capitalist roaders. And so that is the background, why there's such a thing as a cultural revolution. And when it started in 1966, I was only 7, and I just finished my first semester of the first grade, which I considered my only kind of normal education. When we just learn things like still deep into the indoctrination, but at least the Chinese language textbook will be something, in a way harmless, or that all is going to change. Yeah, all that is considered bourgeois, and it's not revolutionary, and it's going to change. So, and I was only 7. By the time it's all done, by the time Mao died in 1976, 10 years. And by then I graduated from high school and was sent to the countryside to do what? To get my re-education, which is a term that many Americans have heard about today.
Re-education, yeah.
Re-education. And so by the time his successor, Deng Xiaoping, reopened the universities, and that was 1977. And I took examination and failed for the first time. And I was so determined that I have to get out of the countryside to go to college. So I tried again, and I was admitted in 1978. And we never had choice growing up. We're always told what to do. But for admission into college, you have 3 choices of subject you want to study. I said, English, English, and English. I want to study English because by then, we already know that we're lied to. We already know there's a better world out there, and the best is the United States. And I said, I'll study English. Maybe one day, maybe, just maybe, I was able to go there and take a look. And never dreamed of going there and live. So in 1978, I went to college. And after that, I was given a job. You were never allowed to to choose. You were given. And so I was lucky. I was given the job to teach in college that train middle school teachers. And there, in the mid 1980s, I met a group of Americans who came to China. That China just started to open up. They came to teach in the summer, and it's organized by churches, and so they just teach conversational English. They just teach, open their mouths, and we hear real English. Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
But there, I met a lady, and we become friends. And so he told me that she will help me to come to America, and she will try to secure a citizenship for me.
Okay.
And I said, thank you. But I'm sure she will forget as soon as she left China. She didn't. She didn't.
Oh,
And so a few months afterwards, I got a letter. She said she's in the process and she's going to help me to come here. So in 1986, never forget, 1986. Yeah, so next year I'll be here in the United States for 40 years.
wow.
And so I got admission, and she secured me assistantship. So I was on my way to the United States. So if
Congratulations.
I continue a little more of my story, which maybe help your audience, is that I thought I left communism behind me. I
Yes.
thought I come to a place that freedom is a given. There's just no worry, and what can happen to the greatest country of the United States? I came here, I pay no attention to politics, and politics, it's nothing. It's just Democrats and Republicans, they all have the best interest of our country. They just disagreement of how to get there. So I voted every presidential election, but really don't understand issues because I thought those issues are nothing, just minor. Well, I started to notice things gradually, and well, by the time it's 2020, there's no doubt something was really wrong with the country. And what I saw and everyone else saw in that year was a full-blown Marxist revolution. Even though I know for sure this is a repeat of the Cultural Revolution that I experienced when I was young, but most Americans, they had no idea. They just, what is going on? What happened to our country? They have no idea. This is Marxist Cultural Revolution. So after that, I decided to get involved. I said, now I know that freedom is not a given. We have to defend it. We have to defend it. Now it's my turn. I had a good run, just enjoying it, just benefit from the others that come before us that sacrifice
Yeah.
to defend it. So I decided to get involved. And so eventually went to the school board meeting, and I just had like a less than 1 minute speech or comment, whatever.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I absolutely have no idea that it went viral, and it did. And so only after that I realized American people do not understand communism.
And I think what you have said before was that that moment was when you realized how much critical race theory was so similar to communism. And it's got different names in America.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
you were able to say, no, this is exactly the same
Same
thing
thing.
as the
Yeah.
Cultural Revolution. And not just critical race theory, but so many of the things. 2020 was kind of like an explosion of so many different things that resembled Marxism in these communist countries throughout the 20th century.
Yeah.
And it's not that critical race theory or diversity, equity, inclusion, or the LGBTQ movement, these are not standalone movements or random groups of people suddenly all pushing their same narrative at the same time. It's part of a concerted plan that's been working through the American system for a long time.
Long time. That's the key word. Long time. Decades.
Yes. And
Decades.
so in America, we call it, if you've studied communism, it's called the Long March through the institutions, but it gets its name from the Long March
In
in
China.
Chinese communist history. Can you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that?
Yeah. That was a episode in the Chinese history in the 30s. And so the Chinese Communist Party established their so-called Soviet region, and they become a kind of insurgent and opposition government. They call themselves like a government, and so the nationalists were their enemy. Tried 5 times to wipe it out, and they failed the first 4 tries, and then the fifth time they were able to drive them out, and but they did not really just wipe them out. They just drove them out of the region in southern China, forced them to flee. And so back then, the term for this is the Great Flight. Mm. And there's no such thing as a long march. Sounds really epic. And
that sounds more exciting.
Yeah. So, but they survived. Actually, they have go through, the west and southwestern China, over like 5,000 miles to eventually settle in the northern part of China called Yan'an. And so after they get settled there, and then they realize this is something that they can actually make something out of it. Mm-hmm. So they start to call it Long March. And then they started to get the survivors to write about their experience. And so about 300 people submitted their like a reaccount of what they went through. But then that doesn't mean anything, right? It's just that there was a little, they did not even have publication. And thanks to the leftist American journalist called Edgar Snow. This is a very important name, and my second book is coming out in January, and I explain everything. Okay. So he went to Yan'an to interview these rebels, and he believed that they were the future of China. So he was the one popularized this term, Long March. And all the Western communists love it. Mm-hmm. And so in the 1960s, a German communist, I can't pronounce his name, whatever his name is, he invented this phrase, Long March through institutions, mm-hmm. which means take over the country, not by insurrection, armed struggle, but by infiltration. And so one institution at a time. And of course, the first one that took over was the educational system. And once they secured their power there, they have been able to generate generations of Marxists, leftists, communists, whatever they call it. It's all the same thing. And now today, they are in charge of all our institutions.
And that is some of those institutions, not just the schools.
Not just the schools, churches, mm-hmm. And corporations, of course, all institutions, political parties, government, military.
Even entertainment,
media, mm-hmm. all this. Mm-hmm. If we did not win 2020 election, there's no say what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And we just turn into a communist country, and people don't even know about it.
Yeah, I believe that's true. We saw it, I said these are not random chances where pockets here and pockets there of people are trying to push all kinds of crazy ideas. It is part of one large plan. It is cultural Marxism in America. And that's what your whole book is about, Mao's America.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So tell us about why you wrote that book and what the warning is to Americans.
So back to my story that after the interview, after my speech went viral and Fox News called. Fox News. This is something everyone knew. Oh, no, wrong. Nope. Not many people know about it. And then I start to be invited to talk to different conservative groups, interviews, and the more I get engaged, with the public, I realize this is really bad. People don't know. Once I was invited by a conservative outlet to have an interview, and this guy said, "We want you to talk about Mao." I said, "Who?" Mao. Meow. No
He didn't
idea.
know anything about him.
No idea. Yeah, it's a conservative outlet. Have no idea who Mao Zedong was, and so after traveling around the country and got on all sorts of interview and media and social media, whatever, I realized this is just not enough. People won't understand it by just listening to me 10 minutes here, 40 minutes there. That's why I decided I have to do something. And it's something I never thought about doing, never thought one day I would write a book. So in 2022, I quit my job. And so started working on the book. And because I believe that's the only way I can explain things in depth and help people to understand what we're dealing with is communism.
Yeah,
And
and your book does such a good job because you have firsthand experience of Chinese communism, the Cultural Revolution, and then of course your parents had that experience in the Great Famine, and so you have like the best vantage point to say we're seeing the same thing here in America, guys, and
yes,
it's such an important book, and I really appreciate that you wrote it, and it's easy to read, it's very engaging, and it really opens your eyes, even if you don't know who Mao was, if you don't know anything about communist history, you do such a great job of weaving the two together to show us what is taking place in America that's identical to what you left.
well, I'm just so moved by the reception of the readers, and by then I already learned how to get on the Twitter. Back then it's Twitter, and get on Facebook. Before I never. I never used social media, and from the response, I realized that yes, people said that is an eye opener, and a lot of people say this is the first time they really understand that what's going on in China, in America, because my story, because my experience. So I'm just very grateful because I'm in it to save this country because I escaped communism.
Hmm.
So if America falls, where are we going to go? Where? Just tell me where.
Yeah.
Some said you, oh, maybe go to Switzerland, and you dream it, Switzerland. The whole West will fall if America falls.
Yes. That is not an exaggeration, friends.
No,
I
it's
beg
not.
you to understand that is not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
So, can you give us a couple of examples of the warnings in your book that where you compare what's happening here to what you saw in China?
Yeah. So first of all, and one day I was interviewed, and the interviewer gave me this big question: what is cultural revolution? All of a sudden I was like, where do I start?
Hmm.
And so the culture, why it's called cultural revolution, because Mao was always using violence. that's that's how he won China, right? And it's through armed struggle. That's what he called armed struggle. Is one of the magic weapons they had, is to overthrow the sitting government, which they succeeded in doing it. And that's for power, and he got the power. But the second time is also for power, but it's different kind of power. It's the power from not from his the enemy of another party, such as nationalists, but this time it's from within his the people of his own party. So he has to come up with something more clever than if if he staged the coup, he won't look good, right? People say, why are you doing this? So he used something different. He used the kids, as I described already.
Hmm.
But what's the goal? It's to destroy the past, destroy the memory, destroy everything that remind us as a people. So he called it four O's: old ideas, old tradition, old custom, old habits. And so the Red Guard said, okay, everything old. Then we know how to carry out this instruction. So they went after what? Statues. Yep. Statues, old symbol. And
Sounds
so they
familiar.
took down the statues. In China, most of the statues there are not as many public statues on the street. Usually it's in temples and churches. They went in and destroy everything. And they destroy books, destroy everything old. And then destroy, not destroy, but to replace street names. Sounds
Hmm,
familiar?
it does.
Names that is not revolutionary has to be replaced. And so if it's a traditional name of a street, they change it into something like a Revolutionary Boulevard. Things like that. And then they eventually went as far as change your personal names. So Chinese name is a little different from Western names, that you have a name you can kind of choose from. Mostly, right? Mostly, Mary, Tom, whatever. In China, we had the freedom to choose words and form your own name. And mostly people will use something like for girls would be something pretty or something nice, usually, and then for boys or something like, just masculine.
Mhm.
But that's bourgeois. That's no good. That's no good. So we have to change it. So a lot of kids change their names. And so my name is Xi. Xi means West, and the character is West. And it's because I was born in the city of Xi'an, Western capital. That's
Okay.
what it is, Asian capital. So my parents gave me the name Xi after the city I was born. But Xi also means West. Oh,
Interesting.
that's a problem. West means Western
Capitalism.
imperialism.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just so worried about my name. So I said, no, 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 I got a bad name. I got to
Oh,
change it into something revolutionary. And fortunately, my parents were wise enough to stop me. Just tell them it's from the city. Okay, it's not from. We did not think about the Western imperialism. But many of the kids in my class changed their name, and one changed into birth by the party, meaning the communist Chinese Communist Party was his real parents.
wow.
And because of that change, and also the newborn were given names that is all revolutionary. Like my brother was born in 1966, and so his name is Red Guard.
Wow.
Red Guard, yeah, exactly.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so now it's kind of funny. So when I see people's Chinese names in Chinese character, we kind of know when they were born. So
Wow.
that's kind of a radical. And the books, of course. So they destroy everything and in the public space, and that's not enough. They say, no, they're hidden for odes in people's private homes. We have to go after that. So they just went into like a street, like a neighborhood, and the neighborhood committee sounds kind of just bizarre, but that's what it's not HOA, not nothing like that. It's political. Neighborhood committee will say that family has something old. That family, whatever, whatever. So they're giving a list. So I saw red guards going into people's homes and just destroy everything old.
Wow.
Everything old, including family photos.
Wow.
Yeah. So why all this went so crazy? And you ask here too, why those mobs went after statues? First,
Mhm.
Confederacy. Okay,
Mhm.
you have some kind of a reason.
Mhm.
You can justify. And then eventually, just like Trump said, eventually they're going to go after Washington, Jefferson. Sure enough, they did.
They
So
did.
why? Why they do that? It's because they want to wipe out our past.
Mhm.
So if you want to implement a new ideology in China, that was extremist Maoism. You want people to forget where they came from, to forget their past.
Mhm.
And so here, same thing. They want to implement this new cultural. It's communism, but they have another name, sounds less threatening. Woke,
Yeah.
woke. Yeah, that's communism. And so they want you to forget the past, and they want to demonize the past. And so Washington become a slave owner. Jefferson, yeah, slave owner. And so just so that you don't want to have anything to do with the past, and you rewrite the history, just like 1619. You read.
1619,
We
yeah.
did all the same thing, exact the same thing. So that's one part of it. Is like destroy the past,
I think
and
this
that's
is
just
important for you to share because even in homeschooling, parents who've taken their kids out of the public system, they're totally in charge of their children's education. When I get into social media groups with homeschool moms and they're looking for a history curriculum, so many of them have already been affected by this mindset. And they say, I'm looking for a history curriculum, but I don't want it to be whitewashed. I don't want it to be extremist, right wing. Well, what they mean by that is they don't want the founding fathers to be
yes, hmm,
heroes. They don't want anyone in our founding to be good. They want it
yeah,
to be, they call it neutral, but there is no such thing.
no
They
such thing,
basically
yeah.
want it to be Marxist light homeschool curriculum. And I just think, no, you left the public school, leave all that behind and go back to the old books. You can read the writings of the people that founded this country and know they were good people. They weren't perfect, but they were some really good people and they had great ideas. And it's because of them that people like you have somewhere to flee to. It's
Yeah,
just mind boggling, but that Marxist ideology has creeped in everywhere.
absolutely. That is what I call Marxist worldview. I said that
Yes.
they have, it started in the 30s. In the 30s, and
Yes.
then if you really pin down, it started in Columbia University
Yes.
Teachers College,
The
and
root of
then
all evil.
yeah, if you really, it's even before that. But if you want to kind of pin down, that is where problems started. And
Yeah.
who was the guy in charge of the Teachers College? Jiang Dui. Jiang Dui he was a communist.
The
Okay,
father
there's
of
no,
modern American
yeah,
education.
exactly, exactly. So after all these decades, they produced, even in the 30s, one of the stats I saw is that 75% of the principals in America in America public schools had training in teachers
Yes.
college in Columbia University. So decades after decades of indoctrination, who are responsible for writing the public school for writing the textbooks? The same people, right?
Mhm.
They trained by the same Marxists. That's why, and I think you brought something really important. If you want schooling, do homeschooling and use the textbook by Marxists, you defeat the purpose. Absolutely,
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
but this is a challenge, and we need to have new, as you said, there are some old textbooks we should use, and
Mhm.
also we should come up with new textbooks. And I truly believe we have to do something to educate the young mind today, to inaugurate them so that they know what to when they see things, they have a way to judge whether this is Marxist or
Yes.
not, or traditional or biblical. And so and that's very challenging because we were just were asleep for decades,
Mhm.
and now they are in control of everything. But that we should always, especially for homeschoolers, parents have to pay special attention.
Yes. And like you said, so many people don't even know much about communism. Even the parents, there's so many parents homeschooling that were not taught communist, the true communist history.
Yeah,
And whether they went to, public school or private school, and even nowadays, there are a lot more people that were homeschooled in
yeah.
America, um, and still did not learn the truth about communism.
This is a very challenging topic. Actually, I just talked to someone. It's a parent organization. They invited me to talk a few months ago, and the other day I was just chatting with her. She said, "Why did we ally with Russia during the World War II?"
Yeah.
So this is a really complicated situation that
It is.
surely did not help. And
No.
so World War II actually, because we allied with Soviet Union,
Hmm.
make the people just American public just communism is better than Nazism.
Right.
Nazism is the problem, right? And communism, we allied with them. We
Yeah,
defeated
because most
Nazism
people
with
didn't
communism.
know what was happening in Russia.
Yeah, and this is still the myth still survive today. And I still hear young people say we should be thankful to Russians because we fought alongside to beat Nazism. That's why today you hear Hitler, 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 Nazi, Nazi,
Right.
Nazi, and they have no idea that communism together. I have to correct your number. It's not over 100,000. It's over 400,000. Why? In
Million.
China in
Million.
1979, after they implemented the one child policy,
Yes.
360 million babies were aborted. Add those numbers because those numbers are human beings. They were
Amen.
human beings being murdered because of communist policies.
Tyranny.
So it's way over 400,000 a
Mhm.
million. And today we don't
Yeah.
know that. We don't know. And now there's so many things to add to it. And the Vietnam War,
Yeah.
what that war was about.
Communism.
No, forgotten, right? When we talk about the Vietnam War, how many people think about it? It's about fighting communism.
I
No,
don't think most people know. They
no,
just
they
think
don't.
Jane Fonda and things like
Yeah,
that, and they don't have any idea why we were there.
exactly. And after that, and Nixon went to China, and now Chinese communists become friends. And now today they call China capitalist country. All this add to the confusion.
It does.
That's why we need to clarify. That's why I feel like I have the duty
Yeah.
to educate Americans. China is not a capitalist country. China is a communist country through and through. And what happened to China is the capitalists in the West, especially in the United States, went to China. They brought the capitals, and then the capital married the communists, so that they have a strange offspring. And that offspring is called state capitalism. It's totalitarian capitalism. And so all this is very difficult for a
Mhm.
lot of people who pay very little attention, who don't spend time study. You say, China is now, there's no more communism. Communism is Russia, it's gone. And China is a capitalist country. It's not. And China not only is not a capitalist country, it is a communist country, and its infiltration in America is complete. There's not one place, not one, I'm talking about not one place, you cannot find its reach and kind of find its infiltration, including churches and
Mhm.
including political parties, including our government.
Mhm. And now, as I've seen you talk about on X, and a lot of people are bringing this to light, we have people running for office that just call themselves outright communists now. They're
Yeah,
not even
because
hiding it anymore.
Yeah, because we have sanitized that word so much,
Mhm.
and so socialism being social, being social, being helping to each other, being neighborly, and so we have a really task. And I
Yeah.
really, when you ask me to talk to the schoolers, homeschoolers, I said definitely because that is our hope is to
Mhm.
educate the young people from very young age that understand all this, and so that's we have a task ahead of us really, and
Yeah.
because there's just so little understanding to begin with. Now with all this fusion, communist is right here in front of you, in front of your face. They don't know what it is. They can't
Mhm.
recognize it because they don't know, and because
Now,
they were not taught, and
yes,
because
and
they were
that's
not taught is because that was the whole design.
well, that brings me to this one thing I've heard you say before, that you talk about how your education failed to actually provide you actual academics because it was so strong in communist indoctrination. And is that what you're seeing in America today?
Yeah. So what is the indoctrination? Indoctrination is really teach the children not to think critically. That's what indoctrination is. They tell you something and then they made it like the only truth, and then they will do anything to stop you from questioning, because questioning is a racist, questioning is bigot, whatever. So that's what you cannot think. That is the goal of indoctrination. That's what happened to me in China. And there are smart people who question. I did not. I have no idea. I just accepted whatever I was taught, and because I don't have anything to go against it. If you think critically, you have to have kind of information, right? You have to have a different source of information, and you look at someone said this, and someone said that, and this is what happened, and that I can see, and I make a judgment, right? And then you come to your own conclusion. That's critical thinking. And in China, I did not have any information because everything was controlled. So I just believe even the reality did not match what we were taught. I talked myself into accepting it because I don't have the resource to fight back. I can't debate. There's no such thing as debate. There's only one thing: obey rather than debate. So that's what's going on in American education. And so they stopped thinking critically. Yet, here's very interesting. So you can't just say they stop thinking critically. So the whole thing about woke is critical theory. That is, the whole thing is based on critical theory. And then you have critical race theory, critical feminist theory, critical whatever theory. Okay.
So many.
Yeah, whatever. But what do they mean when they say critical theory? What it really means is to look everything critically, not through thinking, but just find the fault. Mm-hmm. That's very easy. That's because we are not living in a perfect world. So they were just looking for problems. And so that's what called the critical eye. Is not critical thinking, but the eye to look for shortcomings. That's so easy to do. Absolutely so easy to do. So they found problems here, there, and they call it what? Systemic. And then what you do, if it's systemic, what you do? Overthrow it, right? Overthrow it. So while they can't think critically, they have a critical eye and looking for imperfection. And so when they look for imperfection and say this is the oppressive system, they have no idea what oppression is. They really don't. So that's our challenge. So communism has been, since Karl Marx, it's 200 some years. And it's still, live and well. It's because it's deceptive. Mm-hmm. It's not something, Nazism, it's for babies. Sorry. It's very easy. It's very easy to identify. Yeah, it's very easy to identify that. Communism, not so much. It sounds really good. So Nazism is like, they have the enemy is the other. The other is identifiable. The other is what? It's Jewish people mostly. Mm-hmm. But communism, the enemy is someone who think differently. So they can look differently. As long as they can have ideas that they don't like, they're the enemy. And so, it's that's what I mean, that communism is so deceptive and it's not easy to identify. And they all sound so good. That is another thing. Nazism, and you can kind of summarize what they do and then you can identify it. But communism is no, it's for the humanity. We're going to wipe out exploitation. We're going to lift everybody up, and then I tell you, I tell you how they lift everybody up. They bring everybody to the bottom, and then we're all equal, and then that's communism. Yeah. And I lived through it. It's not just a theory, but we have to get people's ears, and we don't have control of the school. Right. So it's challenging, but we're doing it.
What do you think parents can do to turn this tide right now?
Well, they have to educate themselves. Yeah, so they have to be able to identify the textbook they got. No, that doesn't look right. They have to be able to do that first, and then because they are the first line of defense for their children, so they have to educate themselves. So I would say that day you said a few parents were there, right?
Yes.
That's a good thing because it's not just the kids. We need the parents to be educated, and so you
For
know,
those who are listening, I recently taught a class on communism to local homeschoolers in my town, and I had about 30 students, and maybe about 10 parents stayed. And she actually did a Zoom call with us and spoke to my class personally. So that's what we keep referencing. But it feels like not enough, like how do we teach everybody in America about this?
yes, but we start somewhere.
Hmm.
And so I think that's interesting that through the 2024 election, we see a lot of young white male voted Republican. Okay, how did they waken up? Because finally, they live through what it means to be a communist or cultural revolution because they become the target, right? They were told that they are racist just because they are white. They are
Yeah.
patriarch because they are male, and they live through it. And they said, "No, I don't like this." They may not understand why, but they don't like it. So I think there's another ways to learn it yourself, live through it, and then you said, okay, no, I don't
Yeah.
like it, but we need more people. Like there's a lot of it, people ask me,
Mhm.
oh, anyone who lives through communism will be anti-communism. I said, no, not so, not so. Most of the Chinese Americans vote Democrats. Why? But
Wow.
you would say they can see through. No, they can't. Why they can't? Because come to America. This is America. This, it's different. And when someone promise you free stuff, oh, sounds good. Sounds good.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm in. And and then when someone tell you, you are Chinese, and the white people don't think they don't like you, and we protect you, and so vote for us. Yes, they will do that, and so that's very disheartening that so many Chinese vote for Democrat, but now less and less. Why? Now they realize their kids can't get accepted by elite schools because now they become white adjacent. They say, no, we're not white. But hey, you are because you
Well,
become
they make
financially
you right.
successful.
Yeah,
Yeah. So they
exactly.
learned the hard way. So I think in a way, we don't have, we work hard to educate, but at the same time, when the left push harder and harder, more people will wake up. Not because they read something or learn something, because
It happened to
personal
them.
experience.
Yeah. And you've said over and over and over in lots of interviews, we've got to teach people their proper history,
Yeah.
the history of communism, but also Americans need to know American history, and that's definitely not something that's taught well in American public schools today, too.
Yeah.
And history is my favorite topic. It's one of the things I talk
Yeah.
most about to understand who founded this country and why they did, and read the stuff they wrote. Don't just read what someone says they did, but read their
Yeah.
own words and understand what makes America different and special. I mean, you picked America out of every other country in the world to come here, and so many others do too.
Yeah.
Um,
This is what I have been thinking. There's two recipes to learn or to inoculate the kids is to learn about the history of the bloody history of communism,
mhm.
socialism, and then the glory of uh, American history. You
Yep.
have to have both
Yep.
in order to really, really understand why America is hated so much by communists, and because
Because we're
America
the
stands
opposite.
for,
Yep.
yeah, stands for something that they are afraid of. That we believe that we were created by our creators, and not the state. Our rights are not from the state, and those things are essential for communists. That the
Mhm.
state grant you whatever. The
Right.
state is everything. So yeah, so you have to appreciate America and understand communism to become a lifelong anti-communist.
Amen. So you have another book coming out soon. Can you tell us
Yes.
again a little bit of what that's about and when is it coming out?
Yeah, and I think that's a very important read as well. In a way, I think probably is even more important. And this book is about the history of the Communist Party, and
Oh,
from the early 1900 to today. And guess
well, that's going to be valuable.
who? But guess who is their enabler?
Hmm.
United States. United States.
Oh my goodness.
And
Yeah.
so you can't say, oh, the communists, CCP, how could CCP buy land here and do this here,
Yeah.
do everything? It's because we have communists here. We always have communists here in America. Though the ones I mentioned, one name's Edgar Snow, who went to Yan'an and then somehow propagandized for CCP about the glory of the Long March. Those people
Yeah. Watch
start
out
from
for
their
those.
beginning, little by little by little by little, and they help China. No, they help CCP to take over China, and then start from Nixon. They help China to become not our competitor, but our most powerful enemy that aim to replace us. They will never just be satisfied be a superpower. They want to replace America.
Hmm.
And it's by reading this, our eyes were focused here.
Okay. That's going to be
And
a
I
good
think
book.
it's really important.
And when does that
Again,
come out?
yeah, it's a easy. Of course, I'm not a scholar. I'm not a historian. So I make it very easy for
Good.
everyone to read, high schoolers and up,
Oh, perfect.
maybe middle schoolers. Yeah, really.
Yeah. And when will that one come out?
January 27th is the date, and yeah,
So if my readers, my listeners want to find you online, where is the best place?
Well, as I said, I tried to get on social media. So I tried Facebook and Twitter and now X. I kind of almost gave up on Facebook because there's not much going on there. And I think I'm shadow banned. X, I tweet every day. I tweet history. Because my goal is to really educate America.
Yeah.
So it's a XVANFLEET is my handle. So follow me and make comments. And I read most of the comments because I want to see what American people want to know or don't know or know, and that's how I can think about my even next book.
Your feed is very educational because you often point out what's happening right now today and tie it to the history of communism in a way that's so easy to see. So I really appreciate it. I follow you very closely.
Thank you so much.
Well, I want my listeners to know we must listen to someone who's lived under the worst kind of communism. And that's what Xi has done today to tell us. And that's what she's done in her book. And so she helps us to see it daily in America under new names, still the same old communism. So please get her book and read it and heed her warnings and educate your children and look for her new book coming out in January. Thank you for coming on, Xi. I really, really do appreciate this.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for listening to my podcast today. If you want more content like this, you can go to my website at nickitruesdell.com. That's NICKITRUESDELL.com. And find me on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.
You're listening to the Biblical Family Network.